Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado emerged from hiding Saturday to join the opposition supporters on the streets of Caracas to protest against the disputed election results which declared incumbent President Nicolás Maduro as the victor. The results announced earlier this week has seen thousands of Venezuelans take to the streets, waving the national flag, singing the national anthem, all in support of the opposition candidate Edmundo González Urrutia, who they and a number of countries in the world, including the US, believes is the winner of the elections held last Sunday. Hello and welcome to ThePrint. In this video, I will explain the events unfolding in Venezuela since the disputed election results were announced, declaring Maduro, who has led the country since 2013, as president once again. Just on Saturday, 7 European Union countries, including Italy, France, Germany, and Spain, jointly called on the Venezuelan authorities to publish the electoral rolls to ensure full transparency around last week's election. This follows the US, which on Thursday recognized Venezuelan opposition leader Edmundo González as the winner of the country's presidential elections in a bid to corner the incumbent, Nicolás Maduro. The announcement by the United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken puts the spotlight on the Venezuelan Electoral Authority, which had declared Maduro the victor without releasing details of the vote count. Maduro, by the way, has a $15 million bounty on him from the US State Department since 2020. Blinken congratulated González on his campaign. Now is the time for the Venezuelan parties to begin discussions on a respectful, peaceful transition in accordance with Venezuelan electoral law and the wishes of the Venezuelan people, said Blinken in a statement. The US is one of the first major countries to congratulate the opposition leader, while the European Union and many of its member states have called for transparency in the announcement of results with the publication of the tally sheets. According to Venezuela's National Electoral Council, which is said to be made up of Maduro's allies, the incumbent president won 51% of the votes, while González won close to 45 to 46%. The results were announced Monday and reiterated by the Electoral Council on Friday. But the Electoral Council has not made public any of the individual tally sheets to prove this fact. The González camp, however, has said that it has evidence of more than 80% of tally sheets received directly from polling stations, indicating that the opposition candidate has won around 67% of the total votes. The disputed results have triggered protests across the country, which has seen a brutal crackdown by security forces and pro-Maduro gangs, which killed at least 20 people and led to the arrests and detentions of over 1,000 civilians. The US, in its statement, however, made no mention of recognizing González as the new president of the country. It only recognized his electoral victory. Hours before Blinken's statement on Thursday, Maduro took to social media to state that he was willing to open a dialogue with the US if Washington could respect Caracas's sovereignty and withhold threats. The incumbent president added that the negotiations could be made or backgrounded by the promises made by the US and Qatar last year, saying it would ease sanctions if elections were held in the country. The Qatar deal led to hopes of Venezuela returning to the global oil trade, especially as it is home to one of the world's largest oil reserves and was one of the main sources of crude for India until the sanctions placed by the US on it in 2017 and 2019. The election results declaring Maduro as victor have found support among a few global powers, including Russia, China, and Namibia, while allies such as Cuba, Nicaragua, and Bolivia have all welcomed the results. While the US is the largest country to announce it has recognized González as the winner, the UK and several of Venezuela's Latin American neighbors, including Argentina, Chile, Peru, Colombia, and Costa Rica have all rejected the results. The European Union was unable to put out a joint statement on the results after it was blocked by Hungary, according to reports. However, Josep Borrell, the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, put out a statement in his own name urging greater transparency in the results and calling for independent verification of the final tallies. Mexico, Brazil, and Colombia, 3 countries in the region governed by leftists, have all urged the Venezuelan National Electoral Council to publicly release data broken down by polling stations. The 3 countries have maintained ties with the authoritarian Maduro, who has been in power for over a decade. The Carter Center, which observed the election, announced that the polls did not meet international standards and cannot be considered democratic in a statement published on Tuesday. In a press conference on Wednesday, Maduro called Edmundo Gonzalez as Juan Guaido Part 2, a reference to the former Venezuelan opposition leader who, in 2019, had attempted an uprising against Maduro. In 2018, Maduro held a presidential election which was rejected by a number of countries. Guaido, the then president of the National Assembly, Venezuela's legislature, declared himself as the leader of the country after invoking constitutional provisions that allowed his position to take over executive power. The then US President Donald J. Trump recognized Guaido as the president of Venezuela. In April 2019, Guaido declared an uprising against Maduro, inviting civilians and the military to join him. But this plot failed. Maduro has been the leader of the country since 2013, after the previous president, Hugo Chavez, handpicked him as a successor. Chavez, who had led the country since 1999, had seen it become one of the fastest growing economies in the region due to the boom in oil prices in that decade. After Chavez's death in 2017, Maduro had to deal with a global slump in oil prices, which impacted the economy, leading to serious economic difficulties facing the country, including high inflation. In the decade since the start of his rule, roughly 7 million Venezuelans, a quarter of the country's population, have fled the country, heading primarily to the US as Venezuela's economy cratered. In the run-up to the polls in 2024, Maduro made it extremely difficult for the competitive election to be held, including banning the popular opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, from running, as well as preventing almost a quarter of the country's population, that is, those who left the country, from voting. Despite all of these efforts, at least 12 million Venezuelans turned up to vote on Sunday, with some even starting to queue at their polling booths the night before to ensure that their vote is recorded. That is all for me today. Thank you for joining us at ThePrint. Do subscribe below for more such news and analysis.